So here's a picture of the spinal nerves in a little bit bigger picture right out of your book, and this is bringing up the concept of a plexus. And a plexus, as your book describes, is a large network of nerves in the peripheral nervous system. So we've got, looks like about 4 of them. Actually 3 of them, 3 major ones that we do in the body. We have the cervical plexus, which is the neck muscle, or sorry, neck nerves, the brachial plexus, which is going to go to the arm, and then the lumbosacral gets grouped together as one. Sometimes it's the lumbar and sometimes sacral, but typically we group them together as a plexus. And kind of, rather than just saying, oh, the cervical nerves or the brachial nerves, these are called plexus or plexi, because if we look at it closer up, we'll see that they actually branch, and it's not nice and easy like, oh, cervical nerve 4, 5, and 6, there they are. No, they actually branch with each other and share fibers, and it ends up kind of being a meshwork or a net or network in that way. And so that little bunch of them is called a plexus. Very complicated. Be glad you don't have to learn anything more about it right now. So brachial means arm. Brachial plexus is going to be the ones that come off of the cervical vertebrae and go and feed the arm muscle. Okay, and the thoracic nerves do something totally different. They're not really, they see how they don't cross over, so they don't really have a plexus, and that's why. But once we get down to the lumbar, you're going to see them starting to branch to each other and mix that way. And so sometimes it's hard to tell exactly which level of spinal cord, if you've got or spinal nerve, I should say, if you've got some kind of injury to the low back and, you know, it's affecting your leg, sometimes it can actually be more than one vertebral layer. A couple other terms, you've got femoral nerve. So here's the big femoral nerves coming down, and it actually goes somewhat medially. The big one at the back of the leg, some of you guys have probably had a sciatic nerve issue. That's the big one. It's actually thicker than the femoral nerve, and it comes down the back. There's also this thing called the cauda equina, which is the horse's tail, is what that translates in from Latin. And that's the bottom of the spinal cord ends up kind of fraying out like a horse's tail, and is no longer having a spinal cord, but just ends of nerves. Okay, so those were the spinal nerves. Now let's look at the cranial nerves, and this brings up that same idea of afferent and efferent, again, sensory and motor, because a lot of these cranial nerves, and there's 12 of them, and by the way, there are 31 of the spinal nerves, 31 pair, I should say, and there are cranial nerves, there's 12 pair. So the cranial nerves we label with a Roman numeral 1 through 12, and these are either going to have motor, sensory, or both. So if they're both, we call it a mixed nerve. So smell and optic, so olfactory is your smell and optic nerve is your vision. So cranial nerve number 1 and number 2 are strictly sensory. You're smelling or you're seeing something. And so those are sensory information, and those in this picture are delineated with blue. And they're going to come in through the nerve and travel into the brain and then go to the cerebrum, where we're going to process visual information or smell. Okay, the third one is 3rd, 4th, and 6th all move the eye muscles. So these are all motor nerves. So oculomotor, that one's kind of obvious, oculo and motor together, going to move eyes, but also there's abducens and trochlear, which are going to move it in slightly different directions than the straight up and down oculomotor.